Thank God it's over. Thank God it's over. Thank God it's over. Thank God. Thank God it's over.
That's not fair. I wish it wasn't over.
I don't know. Based on what this season was, this was a mercy kill.
Well, I mean, first off, I'm Jackson.
I'm home with the movies.
And this is a special Bored and Annoyed review of Game of Thrones series finale.
Yeah.
Like series review in general. We're
gonna review the last episode, and then we're gonna kind of give our general thoughts about the series and the season as a whole. Bored and Annoyed.
All right, so the reason why I think it's unfair, your song.
Okay.
Thank God you treated us with that wonderful jingle to start the show.
I know.
I think it's unfair because if there was more, it wouldn't have been bad. I think that's the crux of the matter, is that you took the final 2 seasons of the show. You had these things that you needed to do. You knew where you wanted to get.
Right.
And you didn't have enough time to get there in a satisfying way.
First, what we'll say is that this whole thing is spoilers.
Yes.
Secondly, somewhat of a joke on the song on my part.
No, but I get it.
But at the same time, this season was such a slog and such a mixed bag that I don't want any more of it. Right.
Well, and I mean, yeah, I just wish that we still had like a long running good show.
I can't handle any more disappointment, Jackson.
There were enough little things in this final episode that I liked, where I guess overall my review would be positive, but barely. So just going through, I really liked, I want to say the first 15 minutes, probably 15 to 20. Okay.
I thought
like everybody walking through the burned down city.
The atmosphere was very good. Danny, I mean, there were little gripes here and there with the first 15 minutes. Like, okay, Arya's on a horse and then she's not on a horse. And we thought she was like leaving the city, but she was just going somewhere else. Like, it was very unclear, I guess. But then it was very strange for her to like, it seemed they spent a lot of time on that horse in the last episode to have it just be gone the first thing in this episode.
I mean, it was definitely something that I mean, it's the pale white horse that's like saving her from death, I suppose.
Right.
But yeah, that's symbolic. Whether or not it really matters, I don't know. She kind of left, but she followed Jon back in.
Right.
I guess.
It was odd. It was an odd choice. And then there were talking about nitpicks. It was a little weird to me that Danny like changed clothes midair. Like, I guess there could have been a time gap.
I think there was like a 15-minute.
It still seems
gap.
a little.
She's trying to present herself as the queen,
right? Yeah.
I'm assuming there was somewhat of a time gap.
It was a little Star Warsy. It was a little like, look at me, I'm full evil now. I wear black.
Yeah, but she was like, at least they didn't make her seem like a nut, right? Like a complete nut. Like, you worry it's going to be, she was more like, you still, as fucked up as her logic is, it's not like she came out like, I'm fucking crazy, you know? Like, she came out with her leadership, like Hitler speech thing going. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that all was fine.
I loved the Tyrion moment with her.
Oh, it was great when he threw the hand thing down and said.
I think that was the highlight of the episode.
It was good
in my opinion.
It was very good.
Because it was just perfect. It was just perfect. I didn't. Jon stops like Grey Worm from like killing those people for a little bit.
And then Grey Worm somehow teleports to the top of that.
Exactly.
It felt like something was missing there.
Grey Worm was Nightcrawler in this sequence.
Yes, apparently so.
So that was a little bothersome. I feel like a scene was cut out. I mean, all it really would have taken is Jon pausing and like, looking or at something or having a conversation with one person. And all of a sudden we'd be like, oh, that's enough time. Grey Worm could have gotten ahead.
Right.
But that was a problem. Then my real problems start coming in the scene where Jon is having a conversation with Tyrion.
So I'm assuming I know where you're going with this. Like, how could Jon be so naive at this point? Like, it's unrealistically like childish the way that he's acting.
And it felt like it felt like a mandatory scene. Like, we need to have the scene about like, oh, is this right to kill her? And it's like, but if you're there and you witness something like that, I don't think that, other than you're a person who doesn't believe in capital punishment in any circumstance, I don't see that being the situation.
Question. Well, and even if you don't believe in capital punishment, I mean, you'd do it if it was her, you knew that the ramifications were that she would go around doing this to other, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So to me, it's like, it was a pointless debate to have, and it made Jon Snow look dumb.
See, okay. So I have a couple, or my main gripe with this scene is that, like I said, okay, we are supposed to be at the point where Jon and Dany are like in love, right? So like love blinds you, right?
Yeah.
So that scene works a lot better if I have any sort of belief that they are.
Right.
And that's not there.
And
that's the problem with the series in the end.
Right. And that's where, you know, we were talking about last week where I was able to compartmentalize that episode and say I enjoyed it. This is one where
it's tougher.
It's built on a foundation of quicksand, this one. Because a lot of this relies on you caring about them, and I have no caring for their situation.
Their relationship, yeah. Okay, so even that aside, so I can get there in my head, whatever, but also I think Jon knows that he's wrong.
Right.
I mean, that's how I'm reading the scene, is that like Jon knows. He's not a fucking idiot.
I kind of get it. I also just think, I feel like there's a better way to write that, because it's just not an interesting scene.
I kind of liked the bit when Tyrion, the whole like love for duty or duty for love thing,
was a nice
or whatever
callback.
it was. Yeah, I forgot, but that was good.
That was the best scene in that, or the best
part
aspect
of that scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, the problem is I'm not invested in their love story whatsoever. Not at all. And honestly, Jon, period, the last couple of seasons has just been like a bit player in the whole story.
Well, he's been, you know, people make jokes all the time. He's, you know, Jon Snow because he's white as white bread. You know, he's just so plain. I totally agree with that. And the worst part of that is that Jon used to be one of my favorite characters.
Well, yeah, and Jon can be like a plain guy, but he needs to like take more of an active part in the story, I believe.
Yes. Yeah. He just became a little baby bitch boy.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree.
And I just did not enjoy that.
Well, and they never, and maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself here, but they never did anything with him being brought back to life. Like that doesn't mean...
There was no complications. I mean, I'm going to say that we put a pin in that because
that's a big deal, right? Or it should be.
It should be
the
huge
implications
deal.
Of that. Like he's an undead guy, and nobody seems to even like really. I mean, there's a scene where someone says like, "Oh, or Tyrion?" I think is like, "Is there an afterlife or whatever?" But that's it.
Yeah,
like there's no punishment for him. There's nothing he needs to go through with relation to that.
And that gets to one of my thoughts on the series as a whole, which is you had these really interesting lore aspects that are never delved into. Never complicated, no answers, all set up, no answers for a lot of lore stuff.
I think they got to the point where they don't have the time. Right. Well, I mean, but that's a problem. Like you decided not to do this show anymore.
Right.
Like HBO was going to give you another season or two if you wanted it.
And that gets to the idea. And like I said, I'm going to save some of this for general thoughts. But my theory is that, you know, D&D, they're leaving for Star Wars. And yeah, HBO wanted to keep going.
Yeah.
But they were kind of like, well, we want to go and do other things.
Sure, fine,
and I think
the actors probably too.
Yeah, and I think that fucked it.
Yeah,
I really do.
think it fucked it too.
Yeah,
too big for their britches.
Yeah, we'll see what they do with Star Wars. Then I had a problem with Drogon burning the throne. I don't hate it as an idea, like the throne being gone.
Sure, yeah,
that's fantastic.
Thematically, it makes sense.
Yes, but the idea of like this dragon is so aware of like the importance and the symbolism of that it's a bridge too far.
It's weird.
We haven't set that up. And so he does it and you're like, why?
Yeah, they don't really explain that. It would have been nice if there was more of a reason for that happening. Because it doesn't, I mean, he doesn't even try to burn Jon, and we're assuming it's because he's Targaryen, I guess.
Well, like, it was to the point where I half expected Drogon to just like hello, John, I'm going to burn the, like, just speak to John.
He's Smaug.
Yeah. This throne is nothing but pain.
I mean, so you have to assume that the dragon has some sort of, it's got such a connection with its mother, and it knows that this is what kind of drove her to her death. But then it's like, well, you were the one flying around burning everything, dragon.
Right.
Like
and
you're included too.
Well, yeah.
I don't know. It's just weird. Very strange.
And then you talked about, and this was the first episode where I was like, you could just feel the time crunch in this one. This is probably the worst time crunch out of the entire series, where all of a sudden you get the 3 weeks later thing. And it's great. So much missed opportunity for story.
Well, I don't understand why, I don't understand why Grey Worm and the crew just didn't come in there and fucking kill him.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't get that, but
you at least need a scene that make sense, because it doesn't on its face.
Do they know he's the rightful king?
A Grey Worm? I
don't think he does.
I don't think he does. No.
So I don't really understand exactly what's going on there. Yeah, did John like give himself up? Did he turn himself in? We don't really know.
John is so dumb. He definitely turned himself in, because all he had to do was say, I don't know, she just flew away on the dragon.
It's true.
That's all he had to say. And that would have maybe even been like nice thematically, because it would be like, John learned that you can't be all good all the time and have it be for the best for everyone.
Yeah, but he's Ned Stark. He's like that type of person who's just he's not a brilliant player of the game.
But he's nowhere near as interesting or likable as Ned at this point. Like, the last few seasons have just destroyed him as a character for my viewing.
Yeah, remember when he had like issues at the wall and they were deciding whether or not to go like save the wildlings and whatever, like when there were like real character thought or
when he was the what was it? He was like the Padawan for the Lord of the
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Mance Rayder.
Yeah. Or any of that. Or when he was training Sam to fight. All of that was great. Hate what happened to him. It's just a fucking abomination.
Yeah, it's true. It hasn't been good.
Yeah, I still, and we had a little bit of a discussion on this on Facebook. But
are we going right to the ending? Or are we talking about this council meeting that they had?
The council meeting is one of those things that's just like, okay, it was so bad when Sam was like, maybe democracy?
And they laughed at him. I thought it was kind of funny.
I was sitting there, and it was a microcosm of like where the show is at for me now, which was, he throws that out there and I'm like, this is so dumb. Like, if it became like and then they made democracy, I'd be like, wow, this society has not earned this. They're not ready for it. It would feel forced. And I was so scared that it was going to happen.
That's how bad the show has gotten.
That's how little faith I have in the show right now. But then everybody's like, everybody's got a great story. How about Bran the Broken? I'm like, the least likable Stark, and you make him king. The non-character who's done nothing for like 4 seasons.
My problem with this isn't that Bran is king. It's that Bran was the least interesting fucking character in the series. I mean, I don't have a problem with the idea that Bran is king.
Did you ever watch Ed, Edd and Eddy?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, there's a character in it who has an imaginary friend. It's a plank of wood. He calls him Plank.
That's Bran?
That's Bran.
Well, and it's like, you did this 3-eyed raven thing. You really didn't do much with it that was that interesting.
No, that's another one of those lore things.
Yeah.
Could have done something really cool with it.
Well, and also, I'm sure they thought they were going to.
Right.
I mean, he was missing from an entire season, too.
They completely botched the 3-eyed raven thing. Also, little thing that's not really mentioned a whole lot, Bran saw this whole thing coming.
Yeah, and they don't really explain that either. Like, how much of it did he see coming? Is he the Palpatine of the fucking Game of Thrones universe?
Why do you think I came?
Yeah,
I mean, really, Bran? You let thousands of people die so that you could be king.
Maybe. We don't know.
I don't want anymore.
We don't know at what point he had that thought or whatever. I'm not 100% certain, which is part of the problem, I guess.
Yeah.
You know
Do
what
you
I mean?
remember when he said, I don't really want anymore? And then in this, he said, I don't want the throne, which means you have a want, which is to not be on the throne.
Well, yeah, and he didn't want the Winterfell.
Yeah.
Like Sansa was leading Winterfell because Bran wasn't interested.
And then Sansa coming in all...
But to be fair, Tyrion's going to rule the Six Kingdoms, correct?
That was a little bit of like, okay, you saved it a little bit.
Yeah, because he knows that. That's not his specialty. He goes off to find the dragon. He's not going to be like a political leader.
It's like, where's the dragon? Has anybody seen the dragon? It's like, you're the fucking warg, man.
Yeah.
Why don't you go and turn into some birds and do nothing?
And he goes and finds it. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the idea. But yeah, no, I think the idea was they burned the throne. So the throne is no more. So everybody's all caught up in Bran being the new king or whatever. But really, it's not the same.
Talk about a fascist state. You've got a king that can watch you from a bird's
I know, it's
eye.
crazy. Yeah, I saw something about that today. It's kind of funny.
I mean,
he's like Mr. CIA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, why isn't he like the spider or the master of whispers or whatever?
Yeah, why does he need a master of whispers?
Yeah.
Because he says we don't have one.
Yeah.
You know.
But
yeah, I'm okay with Bran being king. I don't like, I wasn't like, that was not something I had on my mind at all. Like, I know the conversation was like, who's going to sit in the throne, but that wasn't something I had really worried myself over. I didn't really care. I
stopped caring about who was going to sit on the throne. And it was just more so like, how is this all going to end? Sort of thought.
Sure.
You know, but Bran being king just feels so wrong because he's just a non-character.
It is. I mean, I think that's the idea, though, right? I mean, it
feels like shock value for shock value.
Or do they think that they have a good character there?
That's the other thing. I have no faith in these people. I don't know what they think. Bran's the greatest. No, he's not. He's done nothing. He sat in a chair and let everybody fight over him. He let little Lady Mormont die.
Sounds
for
like
his
king.
Fucking prick. What a fucking prick. I hate him. He's just the worst.
Well, it's funny because in the books, I like him.
I look at Bran and see nothing but missed opportunities, which is a lot of this whole season. Because there's so much potential here, obviously.
The best scene ever with Bran in the show. There's two great scenes with Bran, really. There's the scene where he gets chucked from the fucking tower by Jaime in the first season. And there's the scene when Jaime shows up in Winterfell at the beginning of this season. And they look at each other and Jaime goes, oh shit, that's the kid I pushed out the window.
Now, I like certain things that they did. Like, I liked when he went to the tree and he found like the three-eyed raven. I liked he found like the children of the forest.
And then he disappeared for a fucking full season.
Yeah, that was because I was really intrigued with his arc at that point. I was like, oh my God, like what is the three-eyed raven? What is this going to be? And then we don't see him for an entire season. And then you lose a little bit of that luster, you know? But I don't like Sansa being so entitled. The North has suffered enough. Nobody else suffered, Sansa?
I mean... that was like the whole point, though. Like the North always wanted to be separate, right? So this is her shot at doing it, I guess.
Well, and it kind of felt like the show having its cake and eating it too, because it was like, oh, we've made the government better, but also there can be independence. It's not full globalism, you know, for people who have a problem with that. So it kind of felt like the even keel answer, you know?
Yeah. Well, the Starks made out like bandits.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
it's weird.
That was a little weird, yeah.
Okay, you know what else is weird? And I don't know how far ahead I'm jumping here, but what's with like they have that council meeting? I'm assuming it's like the first council meeting, with Bronn and Sam as the new Grand Maester or whatever. Yeah. Like no discussion of picking up all the dead bodies from the streets of the city. Like they go right into the ships. And
I would assume it's been 3 weeks. They probably have done most of that already.
Good call. I mean, still, though, like rebuilding would take a long time.
I've heard people have problems with the tone in that scene where they started joking a little bit.
I don't, just because the characters that are there.
Right.
Like,
and it wasn't like they were like, you know, like pulling out like, you know, animal balloons or anything.
Right.
Like it was pretty dry stuff.
Yeah.
It fit the series. I didn't have a problem with that. And I did like the fact that they took all of probably the most likable characters and they just shoved them all in a room.
Sure.
Of the surviving characters, those are my favorite, save for Arya, which I'm I'm a little disappointed with Arya's.
Are you ready for the spin-off Arya Goes West show?
I'm just very disappointed with like her arc, and I'm just very disappointed with this ending because
her
like,
arc ended when she killed the Night King, apparently.
I just don't get it. I'm not a happy camper.
Well, yeah, no, her arc didn't end then because she still missed vengeance, and then she had that conversation with the Hound, which was great.
It was a nice little conversation. I also now, in retrospect, realized that having a character just talk somebody out of something rather than that person like realizing or doing something on their own, that feels like boring writing.
I thought it was good. I liked it.
I liked the scene. I don't like that it's the crux that turns her character.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
She is also watching everyone fucking die and burn. And
right.
I mean, I liked that.
That I like a little bit more, and I guess you could maybe make the argument that that's maybe why she really changes, is she sees all the death.
Yeah,
and
I would think so.
The effects of vengeance, I don't know. I thought John's ending was boring.
I love John's ending.
Okay.
I like the actual ending. To me, that is perfect. Like where he ends up, I didn't see it coming, really. That wasn't something I expected. Now, I think you could make arguments as to how he got there. There's some that believe that he should have like turned down the throne or given it to someone else or whatever. But I like the idea that he was sent up there and he's going to go live his happy life with the wildlings. It's the only place in the series where he's ever been happy in himself.
See, and I maybe I have to revisit those seasons. There was never a spot in the entire show where I actually felt like John seemed happy and fit in. Like
I disagree.
Like he fit in with the wildlings, but it didn't seem like it seemed like a summer camp. Like he went away for summer camp and he had an okay time.
I mean, I disagree. I think that Ygritte basically taught him who he really is.
Okay.
That relationship, nothing, Jon Snow, that whole fucking thing. I mean, that's where he belongs, in my opinion. So the fact that he ended up there makes sense to me.
Okay.
What do you want him to do? He doesn't want to be king. He doesn't. You know what I'm saying?
That's the thing is like you've built a character out of the things that he doesn't want versus the things that he wants. And I sort of realized what happened in this show, which is why the character arcs feel so hollow now, is because they felt so, they were all being kind of pulled in like a bunch of different directions. So some of their motivations became a little muddled. I don't know what John wants in life.
He just wants to live his life and be done with all this shit, and he can't because he keeps getting pulled back into it.
He's Al Pacino. They keep pulling me back in.
Yeah, that's who he is.
I don't know.
And finally, he's free. He's just a free guy who can just live his life up in the wild. I'm assuming he's king beyond the wall.
And he might be
he's
right
the
about
rightful
that.
king, and he's rightful king to where he's supposed to be king.
But I thought he didn't want to be
perfect.
I thought he didn't want to be king, like for anybody.
Yeah, but that's different kingdom. That's different shit.
I don't know. It still feels very anticlimactic, and it's not what I would have done moment. It's it didn't hit. The whole point is that I've spent 7 years with this show or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, longer than that. 9,
Yeah.
8, 9.
And for me to feel so empty at the end of the series, I think is indicative of a pretty lackluster ending.
That's a lot of series, though. I mean, this isn't the only one. Fuck.
I don't know. I just had a 22 movie series that ended on a fucking
movies,
bang.
And it's not over.
It's not over, but that's an effective ending for that part of the story.
I don't think that's a fair comparison. I don't know. I don't see them as the same thing.
I felt things in one story and I didn't feel things in another.
Like, sure, but you have like all these random franchises with their own movies. I don't see Game of Thrones and Avengers as a legitimate comparison for. I mean, maybe, I guess. Because it's a totally different, it's a totally different thing. It's a totally different thing. There's no chance of being burnt out. It's not one singular. You've had the randoms, like the singular story has been hinted at certain points. But like Game of Thrones is one fucking giant 73-hour movie. That's different.
They're different and they're similar because it's still like you've got like these giant chunks of time. They're leading towards one thing.
I think
yes,
you're making a huge leap here. I don't think it's fair.
Okay.
They're not tasked with wrapping up a gigantic fucking story. They're tasked with wrapping up a two movie story.
It's a pretty giant story. I mean, a lot of the threads tie back to Civil War.
Sure,
I mean,
but it's
even before
they literally sat down and they had to write 2 good movies.
Yeah, but they also had to tie up threads from multiple other
random
movies.
bullshit that happened along the way. But you're not like you don't have nearly as much shit that you have to write. Like it's not one giant movie. I don't think the comparison is fair at all.
I think you have just as many characters that need wrapping up.
You're sticking your heels in on this. It is not the same thing.
They're not. I'm not saying they're the exact same thing. I'm just saying.
If everything has an ending, like I get that, but the comparing of like, oh, Avengers stuck the landing, Game of Thrones it didn't, is different. First of all, you're empty because the show is over, and secondly, If Avengers Endgame was 74 hours long, I would think you had a point, but it's not. It's 2.5, 3 hours long.
But that's not a fair comparison either, because the ending of this wasn't 74 hours long. This is an ending episode. It's the ending of a thing. It didn't stick the landing as far as an ending goes.
It's the ending of one story. Endgame was half of the story.
We can get off of this.
Well, it's a ludicrous argument you're making.
I don't think so.
If that were the case, none of all these shows wouldn't fuck everything up at the end. These giant fucking shows that have like these long character arcs that go for years at a time. You know, like Tony Stark pops up in 6 movies. Okay, fine. But compare that to Tyrion, who's been in movies. 71 episodes.
Like 11 movies.
Okay, whatever. Who cares? He's a bit player in Spider-Man. Who gives a fuck?
Well, I'm just saying.
It's not the same thing. Like Peter Dinklage has played that character in 71 episodes, all within the same movie, basically. Like the ending of a season is just
okay.
You're just waiting to continue the movie later. It's like if you press pause 25 minutes through the way through Endgame.
Hold on. So what are you hinging your argument on? Are you hinging your argument on it's the time spent?
Correct. A lot of it. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure. But I also don't think of the Avengers like the Marvel universe as one 23 movie story. That's not how I see it.
Okay. I think most people would disagree with that.
Okay, that's fine. But fine. You watch Thor 1 as its own thing and you can understand and be done with Thor. You can't do that with Game of Thrones. It's not possible.
It's kind of like if they spent, I mean, they're not, I'm not saying they're exactly the same. I'm just saying as far as an ending goes, this one was disappointing, one was not.
Sure, but you can say that about anything.
Yeah. That's all I'm saying is that one stuck a landing, one made me feel something, the other one didn't really make me feel something.
And I'm saying, like, when a movie ends and you don't like the ending, you're disappointed, but there's a lot more like anguish and emptiness being pissed when a show is gone.
Right, and I'm not sitting here being pissed. I'm saying it just wasn't for what it was supposed to be, for what this show meant to me. To have it end and make me feel not much.
I mean, they fucked it up.
That's what I'm saying. And it's not all on this episode. A lot of it goes on this season.
No, I mean, I think that there are 20 or 30 episodes missing from this show. I've been saying that all along.
Yeah, probably. If you think about what they cut from the books, yeah, probably.
I mean, and just in general, like a lot of the things don't work and they think they work because they sat there and wrote it and they're like, oh yeah, John and Danny are in love, for instance. But it's like, no, you didn't have the time to make that work.
Well, you never really dealt with the God of Death. You never really dealt with the Lord of Light. You never really dealt with the Three-Eyed Raven. You never really fleshed out any of like all of the magic stuff. All the stuff that makes this a fantasy world is surface level fleshed out.
Yeah, I would agree. It is weird. It's weird that it was that. And I mean, I get it because I think even where the books are trending, like there's a little bit of bullshitting and all of that. Mm-hmm. You know, but that should have been something that was kind of uncovered as well.
I mean, that's what makes like a world building series work, is when you can flesh these things out, give backstory. And I'm sort of watching it now, and we can, I don't know, do you want to get into general thoughts about this season of the series?
Sure.
My worry is that they decided to hold off on some of these things in the last season, because part of what is so great is like in like a finale for something is sometimes you get like, you get revelations about some of the lore in the world.
Okay.
Not all the time, but sometimes. And I felt like they decided to hold back on that because they want spin-offs and prequels.
I feel like they just didn't have the time.
I mean, I kind of agree, but I feel like they were like, well, should we pay off this thing that we set up earlier with Brett? No, fuck it. Let's do the Danny and Danny and John thing. And it's like, but it doesn't, but now you fucked that one up, and you fucked up the Night King, and you fucked up so many things. I just feel like they decided to make a choice based on, okay, well, this is our main story. Everything else can go fuck itself.
Well, they don't have time to delve into anything else, though. Like, literally, it wasn't like this season wasn't dense with shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like,
I don't know. They spent forever for Danny walking up to the fucking
right. But okay,
throne.
So what? You have a scene right there where it's like, oh, this explains the fire. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right. It's just so disappointing.
I mean, overall, the last 2 seasons have been disappointing, in my opinion. But
there were so many fist pump moments in the last season, I feel like.
Last season was when it was like, okay, we're in action bonanza,
I mean, you're not
territory
wrong.
now. Yeah. You know, where it's like nobody has a chance to breathe, it felt like. And like the show is dependent upon that. Because then you have an episode like this, and this was all like, this episode, or a few of these episodes, it's like if you would have just had 2 leading into this or 1 after this, it would have worked a lot better.
Right.
Like somebody actually brought up, I can't remember who it was, but basically that you could have made an entire season out of after John killed Danny.
Oh,
like the ramifications of that is a season.
Yeah. It is.
You know what I mean? Like instead it's like 40 minutes.
And it's one of those things where up to this point in the season, I was like, it doesn't feel like we're going too fast because I'm used to movie speed, you know? So I'm like, oh, this is fine. This is fine. We're good. And then you get to the end and you're like, oh my God, you saved no time. Like, you know, it all sort of hit me at once with this one, where I was like, we abandoned character threads. We abandoned plot points. And we basically were just like, John and Danny, that's it. That's all that matters. Everything else just goes to the wayside.
Sort of. Yeah.
And that was really disappointing because I felt like that was actually the least interesting story they had going on.
Well, it shouldn't be, though.
No, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, because there's nothing that I give a fuck about as far as their relationship is concerned. I still think they needed more fleshing out of Danny's like moment. I think that John fucking should have had more to do. But I love that John ended up where he was, and that kind of saved the episode for me.
Okay.
I loved the end, the actual ending where you're flashing back and forth between all the different, you know, the Starks and where they're going and where they're headed. I really liked that. I have a feeling I'm going to like waffle back and forth on this for a long time. But yeah, no, some of the stuff, like, it doesn't really make much sense. Like, I do not get, to recap, why Grey Worm let John live.
Yep.
I don't get it. I would have liked to have seen that. So had it explained to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, why is like Arya even in on this meeting at the end? Like, there's certain shit that it's like,
she's a royal.
Okay.
The lady, whatever.
Yeah, but then she's like talking shit to like an actual like leader of.
I kind of liked that because that lady can go fuck herself.
Yeah, but she's great.
I used to like her, and then I was like, you sided with Danny after she committed an atrocity. Nah, we're done.
Danny freed her people.
Yeah.
Okay? And they're the Ironborn. They rape and pillage, and they're fucking assholes.
Oh, great. So they're free. This is a great thing. They rape and they pillage. They're free
well, you know
now.
what I mean? They're assholes. They're like, they
right. So Danny did a big favor for the world by making them free.
Fucking, we do not sow. Like they're just fucking, yeah, that's what they're
we
they're
don't-
marauders.
We don't sew.
We do not sew.
We don't have any sewing machines.
Correct. They don't sew. Yeah, no, they're reapers that
Okay.
don't sew.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I liked her.
What's dead may never die. Isn't that their phrase?
That is one of their phrases, but no, their
Okay.
house words are "we do not sew."
Okay.
And then the phrase "what is dead may never die" is also closely associated with them. But yes, we do not sew. You amateur.
Yeah, that's why I'm a filthy casual.
Yeah, right. But no, yeah, I like it. We are ironborn. We're not subjects. We're not slaves. We do not plow the field or tail in the mine. We take what is ours. So everything they have is taken. So in their thought
That's a
process,
really bad society.
I think it's fucking tight, dude.
I mean,
it's badass as like a house in everybody who's from there is going to be a badass except for Theon.
I liked Theon.
He had a good arc, I guess.
He had a great arc, actually.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the few people that came out of this season.
He came out okay.
I mean, as far as an arc goes, yeah.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I would agree.
I'm so wildly baffled by what happened this season. You know, I don't think I've seen a series take basically a nosedive for the entirety of it.
It's clear what happened. They
Right.
fucking ran out of like book material to make, and they fucking wanted to finish up.
Yeah.
They were done.
They phoned it in.
Yeah. They just needed, okay, we can do this in 2 seasons. They bit off more than they could chew, I guess would be the best term to go or
Right.
to say about it.
Well, and I've heard people say stuff like, oh, well, you know, they signed a contract with Disney, and, you know, Disney is probably like, well, hey, we haven't told anybody what we have release dates for this. We've got a whole schedule planned. So we need you guys to have your script done by X so we can start shooting by Y, blah, blah, blah.
Do we know when that happened though, too? Because this was trending this way for a while.
Right.
I mean, fuck, season 7 was like 2.5 years ago.
Right. We don't know when it happened.
Right.
My whole thought was, even if that's the case, and it did affect the writing of the seasons, it still doesn't make it okay because you had a contract with HBO to do this series. I don't think in the contract it says it's okay to phone it in the last season if you get another contract.
Oh, clearly HBO couldn't hold them to doing more episodes. I mean,
Yeah.
HBO's got to be pissed. They just lost their biggest show ever.
Yeah. Oh, it
15 million viewers or something.
it
for
had
the finale.
the highest HBO viewership of all time. It like took the record. For
Not
this
surprising.
season. Yeah, it's not surprising. It is crazy too because like, I mean, when are we going to see a series like this that like sort of like, you know, premium, for the most part, incredibly high quality show?
Even the bad seasons are impressive as far as
Yes.
filmmaking is concerned.
Yes, I mean,
it's movie quality shit.
I mean,
on
that's
TV.
That's the thing. Like, okay, that's the other question is like, does this, you know, we've sort of had this conversation before, but does this taint going back for you as a fan?
Like watching it from the beginning,
Right.
I mean, knowing how it ends, I still, if somebody asks, okay, I'll put it this way, because that's kind of tough. But if somebody asked me, should I watch it? I would say yes.
Oh, unequivocally.
100%.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually, the other day I was like, you know, I want to remind myself about what this used to be. So I started episode 1. I was like, this show started amazingly.
Yeah. Well, it was great for 4 years, in my opinion. And then it steadily got worse and worse. And 6, 7, and 8 were the jump the shark seasons overall.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember I came to it a little late. I watched 3 seasons in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And yeah, it was one of those things where like you couldn't get it out of your head. You couldn't stop thinking about it. You couldn't wait to
Right.
get home and watch the next episode. And then you're right about season 5 where you're like, that was okay. It's Game of Thrones. I'd be
Yeah.
excited, you know, but
Well, and I think watching it quickly would help the ending, because the other problem is like Like John with the Wildlings, for instance. Like, our conversation earlier, it's
Yeah.
like you watched that 5 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
people watched that so long ago, they might not even think about that.
It's kind
you
of
know
one
what
of
I'm
those-
saying? Like, you're detached from it. Whereas if you watched it, like if you binged it,
Right.
you might have watched it 5 days or 2 weeks ago or whatever.
Yeah. That's a good point. And yeah, in binging, it might actually find some strength. I sit here and I say, I think that's why you kind of have to remind people what in this season, from a writing aspect, you have to remind people what that meant to Jon Snow. I don't think they really did that effectively to have that moment mean something.
Right. I'll tell you what, this last couple seasons, this will be kind of my wrap up here. What these last 2 seasons did for me was assure that it's not on the level with Breaking Bad. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's not like, because Breaking Bad to me was almost
a perfect ending.
It was such a good ending.
Is so rare.
Right.
It's so rare.
Yeah, but it just sucks for the history of this show, because would I put it in my top 5 shows ever? Probably.
Right.
But it's not number 1.
Right.
It's not.
Which is
sad.
Sad because it was one of your favorites for
I mean,
the
if they
longest
would have
time.
stuck the fucking landing, it'd be number 1, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just, they didn't stick the landing.
No. Which is really sad. And, I try not to I sort of hate what's happened with the discussions around this, which is like, you just
Petition.
didn't get the petition.
Yeah,
you
so
didn't get what
stupid.
you didn't get what you wanted. So it's like everybody's kind of just being like, can we all just be respectful of each other's opinions?
Sure, yeah.
Like on this, like if you didn't like it, you didn't like it. If you liked it, fine.
You're wrong, but fine.
No, I don't care.
No, I mean,
you like what you
there's
like.
a lot to like in the last 2 seasons too, I think.
There is.
But,
I
it's
still
just-
think the last second to last episode is masterful filmmaking.
See, I think that, I agree with that, but I think that the same problems plague 5 as did 6 here. I think that there's shit that is missing. There's I don't have a problem with where the pieces ended up. I just don't understand how the fuck they thought that this would be a satisfying way to get there. I think
Right.
that's the whole problem with what has happened to the show, in my opinion.
I agree. I completely agree. I just think it was broken from a script and concept level. It's not even concept level. This is a fine enough ending, but you have to earn everything.
Well, and it's like they took like a full these last 2 seasons. It's like they took 20 episodes worth of scripts and they were like, okay, now we got to cut this.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I will say this. I actually think it's a little bit broken from a concept because it is so, this is such a basic kind of safe ending. It's so,
I mean, it wasn't safe to give it to Bran.
That's the one thing that they did. And it's the one thing that makes like 0 sense. And it's not one of those things you think about for a while and you're like, well, he'd be a great king. He's so detached
From the show, I know.
Well, and not
And
just
from
that,
everything going on around him, yeah.
I mean, how many people are going to die in his kingdom before like he goes like, it was the will of the fates.
I love the idea that he's like Emperor Palpatine and he just constructed this whole thing from the beginning and he's really evil. God.
I watched a video of a guy, and I just want to leave it off on this, which is there's this guy on YouTube named Hello Future Me.
Okay.
And he kind of does like sort of like lore stuff and sort of mythology, and he actually wrote a book recently.
Okay.
And he did a video about rewriting the Battle of Winterfell. And it's one of those things where you see how easy it would have been to pay off certain things, have Bran mean something, have things mean, restructure it so there's real tension instead of just kind of like fake tension, get rid of sort of the red shirt feeling of the episode. Sure. And it's minimal changes. But I highly recommend watching it because it shows you how easily you could have saved.
What's his name?
Hello Future Me.
Hello Future Me. I will check it out. And you should too, listeners.
Well, that's the end of the episode.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it more than the ending of Game of Thrones for most of you.
Yeah. I don't know. It's probably about as entertaining.
No more Game of Thrones.
It's
weird.
Sad. There's a little bit of like grieving going on too.
Yes, I would agree because now you got to find the thing that replaces it.
It's like
It's a cultural moment.
It's like when somebody in your life dies in a very frustrating, like you're so self-destructive kind of way. You know?
Sure, yeah.
You're like, you had so much potential. Why did you have to leave like this?
Yeah, or ends up on the streets blowing people for a nickel or something. Yeah, that's what Game of Thrones did.
If that's what happens to you, no judging. We just think you're better than that.
But yeah, that's it for me.
That's it. We're done. May you live long and prosper.
May the force be with you.